Good morning, folks. This is Pat Healy from the Laker News. I'm interviewing Dr. Lisa Barrett this morning about the. She's a infectious disease expert. I've heard that enough on CTV. Good
True.
morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So,
Good.
so 15 months ago, you were just known as like Dr. Lisa Barrett, pretty much outside of Nova Scotia. I think you were like an unknown. Now you're well known across Atlantic Canada and Canada from all the interviews you've done. How has that been like?
It's certainly different. Most of the people that would know anything about me would have been in my circles of, I treat a lot of hepatitis C, and we were interested in both treating and eliminating hepatitis C. So most of the people who knew me were in that world, and that's a pretty academic world at universities and the like. And now it's a little bit different. I think messaging is super important in times of crisis, and I'm actually kind of thankful that I was given the opportunity to do a little bit of that.
Good. And I think Nova Scotians are too.
Well, you know what? People are just amazing. Nova Scotians are so gracious. And even if you say something that maybe you probably shouldn't say, unlike some other places in the world, nobody's yelled at me too much yet.
That's good. That's good. So the now we're talking about testing. Has the zest for testing worn off? Seeing the decrease in number of tests done, and some days the long lineups are no more. Has the
Yep.
zest worn off?
Well, that's an excellent question. So compared to my target, which is about, 2,000 people wandering through at every pop-up every day, and that gets us to the point of, in areas with cases, testing about 5% of the population a day. That's a lot. It's an ambitious goal. Yet we're not there anymore. We were for a while. But having said that, we're still way ahead of any other province for asymptomatic testing in terms of the numbers being looked at. And it's still finding a good chunk of the cases that we're seeing in the third wave before they otherwise would have been detected. So has the shine worn off a bit? I think people get a bit tired, but it's kind of like security at the airport, right? Your new security, COVID security, is going to be testing every week for a long time. And I think people are coming around to that idea.
Okay. So some people feel like you had, or like CTV Steve Murphy said recently, hoodwinked over the Astrazeneca pause. To those who are angered with the messaging, how would you convey the news about the pause? For those of us like me that did get AstraZeneca, is it safe? Are we okay? What does the decision to pause it leave us knowing where are we going to get our second dose from? I know there's a lot of questions in there.
No, it's a great question. So the take home message for me always is pandemic information and advice changes a lot. So to me, this wasn't completely unexpected that the advice was going to change. And it was because the health information around AstraZeneca was also changing in real time. Does it mean that it's not effective? No, AstraZeneca is effective. Does it mean that it's not safe? Well, it's certainly a very rare side effect that happens. People need to be aware of it, just the same as when you go in, for example, for a hip surgery, you need to know what the risks are there too. And if you decide to go ahead with it, that's great. People did go ahead with it, and we will be protecting people's second dose. And then we're going to see what that new study coming out shows about being able to mix and match and whether you should or shouldn't. And then if it shows that mix and match is okay, you get a different one. If it shows that it's not quite as effective, then you get the second AstraZeneca. And certainly, and this is important, if you didn't have trouble with the first shot, it is exceedingly rare to have trouble with the second shot. Okay. So your risk goes down even further from the very rare event with the second shot. So don't feel hoodwinked. Don't feel that you were told to do something that was unsafe. But if there are other options as we go forward, like other vaccines that don't have the side effect, kind of makes sense to take them.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Likely a question many people want to hear an answer to. What do you know at this point about how effective the vaccines are in fighting the new variants that are out there?
Well, unfortunately, this is one of those ones that's going to cause a lot of messaging trouble over time. Immunity and protection is not an on-off switch.
Yeah.
Instead of an on-off switch, light switch, I like to think of it as a dimmer. And so when you think about that, the variants do dim the response a bit, but they do not seem to affect the ability to protect from death and hospitalization. That's good. Does it protect quite as well against early or mild infections? We're not sure yet, but there is the chance that over time, the vaccines won't work quite as well against some of the variants. But right now, preventing death and hospitalization is a good thing. And it does look that like almost all the vaccines work against almost all the variants in many different ways. The Astrazeneca and the South African variant, so-called B11351, it does look like it has some challenges and probably is not first recommended, but the good news is that's on a pause right here, right now. And we have very, very, very little of the B1351 variant in Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. So that's reassuring.
That's a good thing. That's good to know.
Yes.
What is the latest on whether someone who is vaccinated can still carry the virus and infect someone who isn't vaccinated?
Yep, great question. I assume, so that there's a long answer I'm going to give you. And the short answer is I don't assume that vaccinated people are completely unable to transmit virus. So I do think that they still can a little bit. And vulnerable people at this point include those who aren't vaccinated. So that's the short answer is don't change nothing yet, because I can tell you it is not totally shown that all transmission is prevented. And we're going for gold standards in Atlantic Canada, right? We want to get no cases, not just 100 cases a day. So the short answer is don't change anything yet, even if you're fully vaccinated. And around unvaccinated people, that advice probably will change over time. And yes, it is very likely that your ability to transmit to another person is much, much lower, but it's not zero.
Okay. Cool. How would you appeal and speak to those that are not taking our current situation seriously?
Oh, that's a tough one to a tired infectious disease doctor on a Wednesday morning. I would say, I think everyone's doing the best they can right now, and keeping the idea that we are into a, it is a long stretch, but we're into the hopefully the final lapse of this for the next number of months, and we can get back to COVID living. Won't be exactly the same, but COVID living. I'd say it really is important to remember that this virus travels without symptoms, and you may not know who it is you're putting in danger. And I think there's almost no one in the community that can't understand that there are vulnerable people even after vaccination, and we need to protect them. And the best way to protect them is to take this seriously. And that's right now, really reducing the number of contacts you have, and then afterwards getting vaccine as well. So my appeal is to what I know is the absolute look after each other mentality, no matter what the question of Nova Scotians. And I think people can do it.
Okay, cool. Why is continuous testing important? How does this help keep us safe?
Yeah, it's a great question. So everyone knows that when cases are high, get tested. Lots of virus around in the community. You may not know about it because it can travel without symptoms. Perfect. What people don't quite get yet is that even when virus is low, because exactly that reason, it travels without symptoms, it can get around pretty fast, which is what happened this time before we even know about it. The more testing we do in the more people without symptoms, the more we have an early detection system. It's kind of like, those monitors that check Earth movements to make sure that we know there's an earthquake coming. That's what this testing is. And it helps us to stamp out teeny tiny forest fires instead of this big forest fire we're trying to deal with right now. And our hospitals are full and the ICUs are full. this is why the continuous testing is really important. I kind of compare it to air travel. We never used to have a lot of security 30 years ago at airports.
Yeah.
Then it became necessary, and now safer air travel includes a good chunk of security and a bit of your time regularly. Now, safer COVID living and opening up is going to include testing even after vaccination to make sure we have a good handle on where the virus is. And it's just going to become part of daily or weekly life for quite some time, I think, if we do this well.
Okay, cool. How are you and your team doing mentally and emotionally 14, 15 months into this pandemic?
Well, the good news is I'm a teeny tiny part of a very big group of exceptionally competent people that let me hang out with them and do some of this work. So I am very lucky. Lots of competent and very, very invested people. And that's the people who get paid to do this work and the volunteers who are doing this work, especially around testing. Everyone's a bit tired, but it amazes me how everyone just starts every day and not just to call it in, to like just show up and get through the day till it's 5 o'clock. People are just as motivated as they were 15 months ago. And that's amazing. I will say everyone's a little tired. There are days when people are a little short with each other, me included.
Yeah.
And we get a bit frustrated on occasion if we see things going in the wrong direction. But an incredible amount of engagement, both from people in government, public health, doctors, and the community. So couldn't ask for a better place to go through a pandemic.
Cool. Nova Scotia is a great spot to, go through this. Now the next question is a good one. You might answer. I'm not sure. When Dr. Strang retires as chief medical officer, I've heard a few people say that you would be a good fit for that position. Would you consider it if given the opportunity? Why or why not?
Oh, well, no one's filling Dr. Strang's boots very soon. And he's also an amazing public health professional. Certainly, I'm an infectious disease person. We have similar skill sets, but not exactly the same. And you know what? Sometimes people can work best when they're slightly outside the system. That's where I sit. And I do love having that little bit of autonomy. I think there are lots of folks in this province who'd be great fits for his job. I like my little job of being nearby, but not. I'm not a public health, trained person. So I'm sure the person who comes in is going to be great whenever he decides to take a break. But I hope that's not for a while yet.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Yeah.
he doesn't for a while. That's all the questions I have. Anything else you have for Nova Scotians?
No, keep going on the keeping going. Like, people are doing a great job. Continue to look out for people who really don't have the same privileges we do. Remember, not everyone has a house, a home, and the ability to isolate. So try not to complain about it too much every day. There's people who can't isolate because they don't have a house and home. And for those people who are out there who have the privilege of being able to do all this stuff and to help out, continue to volunteer, we really appreciate it. I'm entirely grateful.
All right. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your busy day for us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.